Welcome into our overtime segment here at SportsSource.tv. We appreciate you joining us. This segment, as always, is brought to you by Blue Smoke Cigar. I'm pointing there because it's there, whatever. Blue Smoke Cigar, I always point to the wrong thing. I got a monitor over here that you can't see. Anyway, Blue Smoke Cigar, it's a club and a lounge out in West Knoxville. You find it there between South Peters Road and Rafferty's, and it is just fantastic. If you're somebody that enjoys a cigar, it's the place to go. The leather seating, they've got tons of TVs there. I was in there a few weeks ago, and it was somebody had CNN, somebody had Fox, somebody had NFL Network, and somebody was watching Goodfellas. Wow. And I can tell you which one I plopped down in front of was Goodfellas. Card rooms, they got private lockers, they got the golf simulator. You want to check it out. Plus, they have some of the best cigars in town. Blue Smoke Cigar, it's a great place. Check it out. Tell them we sent you. All right, I want to welcome in the guys who hung out with me today. I appreciate it. VFL Will Overstreet. Longtime sports writer in this town, Chuck Cavaleris, Mr. Ryan Callahan from GoVols247.com, and right there, VFL Sterling Hinton, who, look, I will say this, Lord knows we've done this enough in recent years. There's been enough coaching changes at UT. I was joking during the show we could call this thing the firing source, because we cover that as much as we cover sports around here. But it's never easy for somebody who is the DJ for the team, who went around waking the guys up in the hotel yesterday and was shown on ESPN, for a guy who's practiced, deals with the coaches and everything. So I give you some credit for just being out here and joining us. So I appreciate it. All right. Gonna just run through some of the Twitter questions today. I put up a stat last night that said Jim McElwain is now 8-1 in games decided by 7 points or less. Jimmy Himes said that he saw a stat that when you throw in his Colorado State games, he was 17-4 in those touchdown or less games. Now, a lot of people blew that off, say he's lucky, whatever. Another guy says, was this a stat that means something? Is that a predictor of future performance? Guys, I think if you look at a guy who wins 8 out of 9 close games and 17 out of 21 close games, I think that is a good stat, and it does indicate a sharp coach. Thoughts?
I think it's an incredible stat. I think anytime you get close wins in the collegiate football these days, it definitely puts accolades on your coaching resume. I mean, the guy finds a way to win. And at the end of the day, that's what you're there for.
What do you think?
Better to be lucky than good at times.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how it happens or why it happens. It's that it happens. I mean, we always talk about it. It doesn't matter. If you go out there and win the games, hey, you're going to be around a long time. That's what the game is about. And if they're ugly or whatever they are, just win them. Yeah. And especially when you're going up against rivals and you're in close games, if you execute and you get those wins, hey, that's what it's all about.
Well, it kind of mystifies you a little bit. I mean, it's a little bit like, remember the Les Miles factor when they would show his record and how they won some games? At least Butch yesterday helped himself in games that Tennessee won by, the one possession game.
He's now 7-8.
Yes.
7-8 in the
So, I mean, there's something to it. But
there is something to it.
Florida has no business being 2-0 in the SEC, but they are.
Yeah, and you can make the case they had no business winning the SEC East last year, but they did. Yeah. And the thing is, you got to keep that in context. There are games that are 7-point games that should never be 7-point games. UMass yesterday counts as a win for Butch Jones. Right. There are other games where you played your butt off just to stay within 3 points of somebody, but you still lost, and it works against you in that. But all things being even, I think it is an important stat to look at, especially if you look at a guy who is 8-1 at Florida and McElwain, and then you got a guy like Butch Jones who's 7-8 here. Well, flip 2 or 3 of those games, and the fan base at Florida is a lot hotter, and the fan base here is a lot happier.
Flip 3 of those head-to-head games.
I think it's a big deal to me, too, because the SEC has basically become what the NFL is, where you've got to win close games on a regular basis. If you're not doing that, you're not going to stick around long.
Unless you're Alabama. They don't have to win close games. That's what's funny is Nick Saban in the last 5 years, he's 7-5 in close games. He hasn't played that many of them. He's 48-1 in games decided by big margins. All right, somebody asked, Tennessee's quarterbacks don't even speak when sitting next to each other on the sideline. Something is bad wrong. There's no camaraderie. ESPN started that when they showed Garantano kind of – he did look pouty. He looked pouty the first game of the year. And if I'd been told I was going to play and I didn't get to play, I might look pouty. But occasionally, last week he's coming out as soon as Dormady comes off the field. He's
Okay.
He gives it that. Yesterday I think they got a shot of him sitting separately. Did you and Andy Kelly just they come to the sidelines like, hey, man, what's going on? What are you doing after the game?
I got to tell you, it's incredible that, all this different type of technology that's going on right now. There's more cameras that are allowed on the sidelines during the games. When you find a quarterback on any team that you see him smiling on the sidelines, being buddy-buddy with any player on his team, smiling, and you're losing a game, like we were in the Georgia Tech game, and you're also wanting to play, you find me that smiling quarterback, I might take his scholarship.
Worry about the game.
If he's anybody that's smiling or happy about a losing situation at any time on my team, that's more concern than if you think they're buddy-buddy or how they're feeling about each other as competitors for the same position.
All right, here's another one. Somebody's asking, is Dormady playing because of favoritism because he's dating / getting married to someone who's close to Butch Jones?
No.
Goddaughter. The idea, I'll handle this. The idea that a coach is going to say, well, she's my goddaughter, I'm going to get fired for her. Are you kidding? No, you play the best quarterback. You play who you think can win. That's just to even think that somebody would say I'm going to based on who's dating who. That's the dumbest crap I've heard. I almost said shit. The dumbest shit. Well, we're not on TV. I can say it. Anyway, do you agree that's nonsense?
That's nonsense.
Would you say it's shit?
I would not go that far.
Yeah, you would.
It's nonsense. I do want to address this because we get this all the time.
Yeah.
Garantano and Dormady, I don't think we're even that close in the offseason, and that's why this is a big deal. Dormady, from the end of spring practice on, they could have named him the starter, and honestly, I think they probably should have in hindsight. If there's a mistake that was made, it's that these quarterbacks and receivers didn't get enough time to get on the same page. I think it was that close or that far apart between those two going into the summer that you could argue they shouldn't have kept the competition alive as long as it was.
And the idea, of course, is to keep pushing both of them.
Sure.
And we knew that in the spring that they were going to do this.
Yeah.
That they'd push it all summer long. But we also talked about that, I guess, the end of August. Would you have been better having these guys work with one quarterback for the majority of this time? That's, there's.
It's a tough
You
juggling
like
act.
having two guys.
I think both these guys are exceptional quarterbacks at the position. I know they have exceptional skill. They both bring a skill set that one does a little bit better than the other, but both good at the other plus. You got to find a way to play both of them, I think. I think you just should play both of them.
Somebody asked this question. How do you think the players feel about busting their asses and being made to look terrible by Butch?
Well, they didn't really bust it yesterday, did they?
Yeah.
Because the offensive line did look like they could bust grapes.
Oh, they got busted, didn't they?
So, let's be honest. There are definitely some things that players can always be questioning, even about the coaching staff while you're playing out there. But yesterday was all on an offensive line that absolutely didn't come to play and made UMass look like All-Americans and made them look like all pro defensive linemen. They got whipped. They got beat. They got embarrassed. There's no coaching in that. That's just playing on a mano, and the other guy in front of me lines up and says, I'm going to make you like this. And they basically took it to them.
Okay, I get a lot of questions about the system. Everybody hates this system. I'll be honest. I don't like the shotgun spread, zone read, option offense. Clemson makes it work. Florida won national championships with it. Auburn won a national championship with it. Not my thing. I don't like it. I like watching a pro-style offense, personally. That said, I am so sick of, it's this rinky-dink system. Look, the system was fine last year. You said you led the SEC in touchdowns in terms of your offense. So Dobbs was setting records. Your offense was setting records. The system isn't the problem, I don't think. It's the personnel in the system. And what do you do with it? Would you be better? I think this system can work. A lot of people think, well, you have to have a running quarterback. I think it'd work if you had a great passing quarterback. I think that could make it work as well. When it doesn't work is if you don't have a great running quarterback or a great passing quarterback. And I think that's where they are right now. Now, maybe Dormady will turn into that. Guys only played 4 games. But in terms of this system, there are people who are saying, well, why don't you just chuck it here in the middle of the year? I don't see that happening. Am I wrong? Name for me the last time you saw a coach say, screw it.
No. If you were going to do that, wouldn't you have done it when Jalen Hurd was wanting the I formation and he was wanting the fullback on the field and he was talking about this and saying maybe some promises were made? I think that's the problem with the system. Other than you got to have a quarterback that is a really exceptional player. back there
Yes.
is you can get yardage, and I think Will agrees with this. You can get yardage when it's working, but when you get in the red zone and everything shrinks, that's when it really gets tough, and you get inside the 5-yard line, and you get close to the goal line, and you're still in the shotgun formation. You do not have the offensive line that is set up to move people off the ball. Yeah. And that's, to me, that's the Achilles heel of this system.
Well, I think they've had too many times where they didn't have the right personnel to run this effectively. I mean, I don't think, if I'm recruiting guys to play in this offense, I'm not recruiting Dormady. Just off the bat, I'm going to be looking for a guy that runs the ball effectively and can pass, right? And I'm going to be looking for that athletic guy out there that I'm going to put out there. I'm not going to put a guy that I think belongs better in a pro-style I-back offense. That's just not what I'm going to go recruit.
Yeah, and I get people hear me say that it could work with a great passer, and they think, well, that's what I'm calling for. No. No. The best thing you can find is a Josh Dobbs. Give me a guy who's an exception, or a Dak Prescott, or Nick Fitzgerald. Dan Mullen, fine, but
Georgia Tech's quarterback. I mean, a guy like that who you want to be in this offense.
Who can run and throw.
Especially
I'm just saying it could work if you had a great passing game, because at that point, they can stack the box all they want. You just go over the top, and that backs them off a little bit.
You've got to have somebody.
If they don't have either, then you're screwed.
When the quarterback is unaccounted for and the play is there on the zone read, there's supposed to be a read. And if you're not doing that, then like somebody said, it's Justin Worley 2.0.
Well, it's a play fake for the sake of no play fake. Is kind of the.
Yeah.
I saw that. I forget what game it was. Week 1 of the NFL. Might have had a screw up in the backfield with the quarterback. There's nobody behind him. He's by himself. He turns around, goes through a play fake. There's no one there.
Right.
Still drop fake. That's the same thing. Now that was probably a bust.
Yeah. Play action pass doesn't work on 3rd and 25. And kind of that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I agree.
To your point, though, I don't have a problem with the system. I think the problem is the offensive line hasn't played well, and the receivers are young and making a lot of mistakes. I think if you're executing well and the guys are doing what they're supposed to do, this offense can work. It's just these guys aren't executing the way they're supposed to, and that's a problem going forward. But you could win with Dormady in this system, like you said. I would
go so far as to say this, Will, to put it in context with you. If you take your 98 team, let's take that out because T could run. You take your 2001 team. Casey Clausen, slow as can be, but that offensive line, those running backs, Travis Stevens, Jason Witten as a tight end who could block somebody's teeth out, those receivers, I think you could put them in this offense. I wouldn't. I don't think that's what they're best suited for, but I think it could have success if you had that kind of talent with it. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree, because I think you could knock guys off the ball and you could do things like that, and you had playmakers. So, I think you can make it work. The thing is right now,
you don't have the great player.
Right, and you have to figure out how to, if you're going to run this offense, then in years where you don't have the personnel, you got to figure out ways to transition and make things happen. We talked about it last year. You had 2 backs you could go with and run more of that as a system instead of 2 tight ends. You didn't. I don't know what they've got this year just right off the bat. I think you've got less than you did last year. But I don't see you trying to figure out with different pieces where to put them. And so I think you've got an issue.
I agree with that. We should see more 2-back offense with this team. This particular team could use Kelly and Chandler pretty well.
Especially with all the injuries at tight end.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a matter of what is your best 11. What are your best players?
Right. Yeah. What are your best 11?
We talked 2 weeks ago. They were running more 2 tight end sets. Really? Now maybe that's telling you they have no faith in the offensive line. But if they're sitting there saying, we think our strength is our tight ends, really? Clearly to me, your strength is your running backs.
They opened the game in 2 tight ends yesterday.
Yeah,
they run 2 tight ends all the time. Yeah. They run it probably 60, 70%.
Which probably has more to say about their faith in the offensive line at this point.
You can still chip with backs. Backs can block.
If it's me, I'm looking at it saying, I got 3 really good running backs here. Let's put 2 of them on the field at all times. Anyway.
What I would like to see is, and I think these things have to happen without anybody outside the locker room knowing, it's just more time with the skill positions. Will made a point, you got to find more ways to have more playmakers on the field. Well, how do you do that with the people that you have? More continuity in this offense, more extra practice time, more knowing the ins and outs of the guys you're playing with, those things that happen during the course of a game where you know it's going to happen because you guys played together and done more after practice. So now I think it's time to step up the making play portion of this season, and it's going to take guys on the offensive side of the ball working extra time after practice.
I will say, while also saying this system can work, and I hear a lot of complaints about it, and just like you did there, but I think the only problem I have with the system still is the short yardage and goal line and the shotgun. That could be changed.
You know what's funny is I flipped by, I was talking to Bob on the phone yesterday, and we're watching a little bit of Alabama Vandy. It's like 3rd and 2. They're in their short yardage shotgun. Alabama. That's the thing that I think is funny. I'm not a fan of that either.
Yeah.
I didn't like it when David Cutcliffe came back here and did it in 2006, 2007. But I have so many people that say, well, nobody else in the country does that. Have you watched a game? People are emotionally invested in the Tennessee games. They watch it intensely. They know everything's going on. Then you flip by and you watch an Alabama Vandy, you're not thinking about it. You don't care. It's just a play. And you're not noticing. We showed this last year. They were shotgun spread in their own end zone last year at their own 1-yard line. Lots of teams do this. It's just we don't pay attention. It's like everybody last week wanted Dan Mullen. I guess he's now off the list. But they all wanted Dan Mullen because they're tired of Butch Jones and this silly shotgun spread. What does Dan Mullen run, for the love of God? Are you even paying attention? Chip Kelly, that's the other dream. Well, you can't say I hate this rinky-dink offense. Now let's go get Chip Kelly or Dan Mullen, who run the same rinky-dink offense, or a variation of it. It's still that read option stuff.
You're right. A lot of teams do the same thing. I think you could
Some
do
do
it
it better.
sometimes. I think you could do it. I think you could do it sometimes. I think Florida on the 1-foot line, you could go under center in that situation.
I'd be a fan.
Yeah.
I would prefer to go under center personally.
Yeah.
But the idea that Tennessee's the only school that does this, that's just not paying attention to what's going on. People, remember Tim Tebow? That whole thing was snapping that back to him on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and nobody ever stopped him.
Mm-hmm. And it was amazing when he did it because he had a guy played ahead of him, that did the full offense his freshman year, and he just came in to run the ball.
And John, even if you're Alabama and you do that, do you spread the field and still try and run it right at them? Is that the thing that I wouldn't? Sometimes
But
they're
here's
going
the
to
thing:
throw
if you're
it.
Alabama with that
Whatever
line,
you call
you
it.
can.
Yeah.
Any system can work if you got the talent.
Sure.
If you take that 1998 team you were a part of, Will, I could put them in just about any offense or defense we wanted, and you and your guys would win games because there's incredible talent. Same with Alabama. You've seen it. He's won it with a ground and pound offense. Kiffin came in there. They spread it around, not zone read option, but spread the thing out. If you got the talent, you can win in a lot of different ways. Urban Meyer tweaked his system when he had Chris Leak down in Florida.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think that's what will determine as much about Butch Jones as anything. How is he going to be able to tweak this or to get the offense on track?
And I think that is their biggest struggle as a coaching staff.
Exactly.
Is it takes them almost to the end of the year to start realizing how to get the best 11 on the field at any one time.
Amen.
When you go back to Sapp and Batuli, they got on the field more yesterday, but you still have that. To me, there is a debate going on over there, and I understand it. As a head coach or assistant coach, it's your life on the line. Your job is on the line here. I want to put guys on the field that I trust. All right, he's going to get you in the right defense. He's going to get everybody lined up correctly. But if you can't make the play, what good does it do you? Wouldn't you rather have a guy out there who may bust, may go completely on the wrong? Sapp yesterday, what the hell was he thinking on the pass that was good? He just kind of stood there like, oh, wow, hey. I've never seen that. But at the same time, Sapp and Batuli, they got the makeup speed. They got the talent that can make plays. And I think that's what I think this coaching staff's a little slow to take talent over security. There's a risk with the talent, but there's also a risk with the security, as silly as that sounds. These guys know what they're doing, but if they can't make the play, what good does it do to have them lined up correctly?
Well, and that goes back to what I said earlier. Just go back to continuity. I think these guys got to spend some more out of practice on the field time with just themselves. Because they got different annuities that they've got to learn to play with each other. This will linebacker and the strong safety, the free safety, understanding what the D tackle is, sliding on the 3 technique so he knows it's going to be a sweeper run and how to fall back on the pass. Not having TK Jr. out there, leading that secondary. Different guys have got to come together and play together more. It's going to take extra practice to do it.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's a good read on your part. I think that's an internal debate that's been going on in that program for a long time. And I think you saw it yesterday. Daniel Batuli's in there. He gets out of position, the 40-yard run happens. It sets up a touchdown. So it matters. Having guys out there you can trust, but at the same time, a lot of people in that program still think you've got to get your talent on the field, and they've been going back and forth on that for a couple of years.
Yeah, you can get burned in either direction, but I think if it's me, I would go with talent first.
I'll put the guy out there that made 23 tackles against Georgia Tech.
I'll tell you how Coach Davis used to say it. Speed makes up for a lot of mistakes. And eventually you put talent out there, and it makes more plays than it doesn't.
And maybe what you're trying to do is too complicated and too complex. Maybe you got to tone it down a little and give these athletes a chance to make some plays.
Yeah, I think there's been question about that on the defensive side, especially last year. How well were you able to dumb it down? And even Shoop has alluded to the fact that he could do more at other schools than he's been able to do here. You know, we could call 2 plays. When I was at Penn State, we were able to call 2 plays and get out there. Wasn't able to do that last year. Okay, well, why not? Maybe your system's too funky for year one. Dave Clawson's got a great offense. It's worked everywhere. But at Tennessee, that first year when they made the transfer, it's worked everywhere. I hated it. I thought it looked, the flip-flopping and the tackles.
He doesn't do that anymore, though.
Yeah, you got rid of that. But here's the thing. But that was an offense that probably, if he had a second year, third year, guys had been in the system, it probably would have looked better at some point. Let me ask you lastly, in terms of player development. All right, I think you could ask that question at quarterback, but that's one that everyone's talking about. To an extent, I think fans at every school talk about player development because you can always point to there's 85 guys on a roster. All 85 of them aren't fighting for first string, so you've all got 5 stars that don't pan out and that kind of thing. But your thoughts on player development at Tennessee? And if you want to lay this one out, you can.
Well, I think they admitted some of that had an issue because they've changed their weight coach how many times since they've been here. I mean, that's part of it. So I don't think that's a thing that the coaching staff hasn't looked at themselves and said we have an issue with. And I think my biggest question beyond that is realizing who are the best 11 guys and getting them out on the field. Right. More so than player development is just getting this mix of people on the field at the same time and realizing a guy in practice that's practicing at this level, maybe if I put him out with the lights cut on, he turns into something else. Right now, I don't see that from this crew. What I also don't see in player development is if we sign a linebacker, he stays a linebacker. Guess what? Sometimes you got a lot of linebackers, you don't on this team, but if you have a lot of safeties, that guy could beef up by 10 to 15 pounds by his second year, and he's going to be a pretty good linebacker. That part of player development of not moving and pushing people around and having hard conversations like the one Fulmer had to have with Jason Witten, who almost left when he told him he had to go play tight end. He didn't want to play tight end. That's a pretty good choice for him at the end of the day.
It worked out at the end. Yeah.
I think you can also make a point that there's been so many injuries for whatever reason. It's hard to develop talent when they're in the training room, when they're getting treatments. But I think that is a legitimate thing that you can look at.
That's a good point. I was going to make the point about injuries. I think that's affected part of it. I think the player development angle is overplayed a little bit, though. I think as much of the problem is misevaluating some players in the recruiting process. And you have a hard time seeing a lot of this, but you've got to find players that want to put in the work, are patient when they're not starters, all those things. Some of these guys haven't handled it well when they've been backups, and they haven't developed as much as they should have when they were second teamers. And I think that's part of it. You got to get guys like Trey Smith, like Quentin Dormady, his first year, he struggled just like Garantano. A lot of attention on Garantano not handling it well as backup. Dormady struggled when he was a freshman behind Josh Dobbs. You have to be willing to develop when you're not in the lineup, and that's what some of these guys probably haven't done well enough.
Sterling, I'm going to close with you. Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I do want to answer. I think you got a different type of athlete nowadays. You have to find the guy that they try to find some of us old schoolers that fell in love with being a part of the team, felt in love with being one to get respect from your teammates. Who cares what anybody said about us in the paper? Now you worry about who's saying things about you on Twitter. Get that respect from your teammates. And when you get that respect from your teammates and you push each other in practice every single day, you will get better. Will didn't know he was playing against first-round draft choices when they were in practice. It was just a friend of his that was trying to make him better. Ended up being a first-round draft choice, and he's a second-round draft choice. I didn't know I was throwing the ball against first-round draft choice defensive backs and playing with the first-round draft choice offensive linemen running backs. But at the end of the day, they were my friends. We were trying to make each other better. We've got to get back to the love of being part of that team and pushing each other, and the play development will happen.
So we can blame it on the millennials.
Hang on. Snowflakes. Oh, here's the thing. When's mood of the team? Last thing. They're hearing this. They had they had to have heard it. You mentioned it. People are watching. They're on Twitter.
Yeah.
Where is this team right now in terms of they're hearing their coach get lambasted? There's now serious talk of changing. Where is this team mentally, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I can't speak because I haven't interacted since yesterday. But I know I can speak for myself. When you back the Pearl into a corner and our team into the corner, we were that squirrel's gonna bite your toe off.
Yeah, but that was your team.
I edified my statement by saying I haven't interacted with the team since yesterday, so I can't speak.
John, just from the outside, I think you can kind of go back to the Christmas story and say this team is extremely fragile.
Yeah, fragile. Man, we'll see. All right, Sterling, you guys can go fight in the parking lot. Will, Chuck, Ryan, Sterling, thank you all for being here. Thank you for putting up with us. We'll see you next Saturday morning at 10:30 on Fox 43. We'll see you next Sunday at 11 a.m. on WATE 6. We appreciate you watching, really do. Thank you and have a good week.